Hello, wonderful. It is Sarah K Ramsey here to talk about establishing healthy relationships after growing up in a toxic family. Because if you grew up in a household where there was either someone playing the victim or someone controlling and always micromanaging everything, running the show, it can be really tricky to find healthy relationships. And this can be true if you've been in several unhealthy dating relationships as well. And some of you have grown up in what looks like the perfect family on the outside, but then you realize that the dynamics of the family really created havoc in future relationships. Maybe you had a mother who was always giving and it was never her turn, and now you're a female. And so what the pattern that you saw growing up was mom always sacrifices to make everyone else happy. Or maybe you had a toxic mother who never sacrificed for her own children and never never taught you to become your own person. You were taught by your family to become the version of you that they expected you to be, right? And so they used control and manipulation and rules that were appropriate for a 12-year-old, right? That were appropriate for a 9-year-old, that were appropriate for a 4-year-old, but not appropriate for a 40-year-old. And then as you got older, you expected the dynamics of the relationship to change, but then it never did. Like, they never appreciated the fact that you became an adult. They never appreciated the fact that you were looking to become your own person. They just expected you to continue to be the piece of the puzzle that they wanted to be able to fit into the puzzle of their life, right? They wanted to still be able to mold you into that piece. And so then you get in other relationships. You try to establish new relationships in your life. It could be friendships, it could be work relationships, whatever it is. But you still looked for other people's cues to conform to who they expected you to be. You tried to become who other people expected you to be and spent your time, energy, efforts figuring out who they wanted you to be, rather than spending your time, energy, and efforts into figuring out who you are, figuring out who you want to be. Your time and energy was spent on people pleasing, right? It was trying to figure out what they liked, what made them upset. And that felt really familiar if you grew up in a family like that. So the beauty is you can recognize it. And the reality is, if you've had a history of unhealthy relationships, you don't want your relationships to feel familiar. And honestly, one of the things I coach my clients on is that feeling of familiarity is actually your friend, but it's a bad sign. If you notice yourself trying to perform to earn love, if you notice yourself trying to figure out, I don't want to do this because it might make them mad, bad sign, red flag. If you find yourself thinking, I don't want to say that because they may not like it, bad sign, red flag. If you notice yourself changing your opinions on things, and it doesn't have to be, if you're at a pool with a stranger and they want to talk politics and you think, I don't want to get into that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about intimate relationships in your life where you decide who you are based on who they want you to be. And your focus, your plan in life is to become who they want you to be, rather than trying to figure out who you are. That is what I want you to notice. And if it feels familiar, that's actually a great sign. If you don't recognize it's happening at all, that's the danger, right? But most of the people in this group are very intuitive. They're very willing to do the self-work to grow. They want to grow, and they're very self-reflective. They take ownership of what they're feeling and what they're thinking, okay? And if what you're thinking is, who do I need to be to get this person to like me, you are always in a danger zone. And I've actually done work with I'm part of a group of female executives in Dallas, and they did this exercise recently, and I was talking and saying all these things, and they kept coming up to me and saying how confident I am, how confident I am, how confident I am, how confident I am. And these are people who one of the ladies in the group is co-authoring a book with Deepak Chopra, if you know who that is. So it is a elite group of women, for sure. And they are talking about how confident I am. And we actually did a dominance line, which is kind of a funny exercise. But they lined us up, as a group, we lined up to figure out who was the most dominant person in the group. And they actually put me as the most dominant person in the group. They said, we want to listen when you talk. We want to hear what you have to say. I'm actually one of the youngest people in the group for sure too. And people ask about confidence after a toxic relationship. People ask about becoming who you are. And it's really a journey. And it's hard work of figuring out who you are, rather than breaking those patterns of familiarity and becoming who everyone else wants you to be. You will never, ever, 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 ever get the life you want, have a healthy relationship, have the respect of your children, be the voice people want to listen to in the room, be the one people seek after, respect. And that's really the word. It's living in integrity and being a person. You can be a person people like, or you can be a person people respect. And you really can have it both ways, but you're never going to be loved the way you want to be loved if you continue to be your parents' puppet, right? Or your parents may not even be doing anymore. Just maybe your parents could not even be alive anymore. But the patterns they set for you in childhood of control, of telling you who you are rather than teaching you to become who you are. And those probably played out in other relationships. There is no shortcut. There's ways you can make it faster, which my clients have discovered, but there is no shortcut. You have to say, this is who I'm going to choose to be, and this is how I'm going to figure it out. You can't people please your way through that process. And you can't really find love, because you'll never be loved. You'll never feel loved if you show up as who they expect you to be, rather than learning who you are. Okay, so if it feels familiar, that's probably a red flag. That's a danger zone. So pay attention to being familiar and recognize it as a danger rather than thinking full steam ahead. Okay, hope that helps, and talk to you later.